Admiral Velketh stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Mind's Reach, watching the endless dance of death unfold before him. The massive view screen showed the same sight he had witnessed for 3 long years. 3 fleets locked in a triangle formation, each waiting for the others to make the first move. The Zephyrian Empire held the left flank with their bioships. These creatures of flesh and metal moved like living things because they were living things. Grown in deep space nurseries, each vessel was part machine and part organism. Their hulls breathed and pulsed with life. Weapon ports opened like mouths filled with razor teeth. The largest of their ships, the Hive Mother, spawned smaller attack craft like insects laying eggs. To the right, the Krathan hegemony maintained their crystal formations. Their ships looked like giant gems carved from pure energy. Each vessel channeled power from nearby stars, storing it in crystalline matrices that glowed with inner fire. When they fired their weapons, beams of concentrated starlight lanced across space. Their energy shields shimmered like soap bubbles made of light. Between them, Admiral Velketh commanded the Veltar Coalition fleet. His people were telepaths, their minds linked across vast distances. They fought as one organism, sharing thoughts and strategies instantly. Their ships were smooth and curved, designed more for beauty than raw power. But what they lacked in armor, they made up for with reality-bending technology. Their weapons could twist space itself, making enemy ships tear themselves apart. For 37 years, these 3 powers had fought over the Nexus sector. The space around them was littered with the wreckage of countless battles. Dead ships floated like metal tombstones, their crews long since claimed by the Void. The reason for all this death was simple. The Nexus sector contained the richest concentration of rare elements in known space. Whoever controlled it would become the dominant power in the galaxy. But no one could win. Each time one fleet gained an advantage, the other 2 would form a temporary alliance to stop them. Then the alliance would break and the cycle would begin again. It was like a deadly game where no one could claim victory. The current stalemate had lasted 14 months. Each fleet stayed just outside the other's weapon range, conducting repairs and building new ships. Occasionally a patrol would venture too close and a brief skirmish would erupt, but these small fights solved nothing. They were just reminders that the war continued. Velketh felt the familiar weight of exhaustion in his mind. He was connected to every ship in his fleet through the psychic link his people shared. He could feel the emotions of 30,000 crew members. Their fear, anger, and growing desperation leaked into his consciousness like poison. Some days he wondered if they were fighting for victory, or just fighting because they had forgotten how to stop. His second-in-command, Commander Neth Val, approached with the day's casualty reports. Another mining station destroyed by Zephyrian raiders. 2 coalition patrol ships lost to Krathan energy mines. 17 crew members dead. 43 wounded. Just another typical day in the endless war. Admiral, Neth Val said, his mental voice carrying undertones of concern. Long-range sensors are detecting something unusual. Velketh turned away from the view screen. What kind of unusual? An unknown vessel approaching our position. It's not broadcasting any identification codes. The signature doesn't match any ship in our databases. Zephyrian bioship using camouflage? Negative, sir. The energy readings are completely different. And the design... Neth Val paused, his mental voice uncertain. It's primitive, Admiral. Chemical propulsion systems. Metal hull construction. No energy shielding that we can detect. Velketh felt a flicker of interest. In 3 years of stalemate, nothing new had entered their battlefield. Pirates? Scavengers? Possible, but the vessel is too large. It's nearly the size of a heavy cruiser. And Admiral, it's heading directly toward the center of our formation. Put it on screen. The view screen shifted to show a magnified image of the approaching vessel. Velketh stared in amazement. The ship looked like something from a museum. It was built of simple metal plates welded together with no attempt at elegance. Massive engines burned chemical fuel, leaving bright trails of fire behind it. Weapon turrets dotted its hull like warts. Everything about it screamed crude functionality over form. What kind of beings build ships like that? Neth Val wondered. Before Velketh could answer, his communications officer spoke up. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel. It's in broken galactic standard. Put it through. A voice crackled over the speakers, speaking words in an accent Velketh had never heard before. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Indomitable. We've come to negotiate an end to this conflict. Velketh and Neth Val exchanged glances. Earth, neither of them had ever heard of such a place. According to their star charts, there were no inhabited worlds in this region of space. Captain Chen, Velketh replied. This is Admiral Velketh of the Veltar Coalition. Your vessel is entering a war zone. For your own safety, I suggest you withdraw immediately. Negative, Admiral. We've been watching your three-way fight for months. It's time someone put an end to it. I'm requesting a meeting with the commanders of all three fleets. Velketh felt his telepathic senses probe the area around the human ship. There was something strange about it. His mental abilities, which could usually penetrate any vessel's hull, seemed to slide off this one like water off stone. It was as if the ship was wrapped in some kind of psychic void. Admiral, his sensor operator called out. The Zephyrians and Krathen are also scanning the unknown vessel. They seem as confused as we are. The human ship continued its steady approach, showing no fear of the three most powerful fleets in the galaxy. Its primitive engines burned bright against the darkness of space, carrying it forward like a meteor made of metal and determination. Captain Chen, Velketh said finally, what makes you think you can end a war that has raged for nearly 4 decades? Because we're humans, Admiral. And humans are very good at ending wars. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in silence. Velketh stared at the approaching vessel, trying to understand what he was seeing. 3 of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had fought each other to a standstill. Now these unknown beings, flying in a ship that looked like scrap metal, claimed they could solve the problem. Orders, Admiral? Nethval asked. Velketh considered his options. He could destroy the primitive vessel with a single shot from his reality-warping weapons. But curiosity stayed his hand. After 3 years of the same battles with the same enemies, perhaps it was time to see what these humans had to offer. Open a channel to the Zephyrian and Krathen fleets, he ordered. I want to speak with their admirals. Within minutes, the holographic forms of Admiral Zekth of the Zephyrians and Admiral Kralnex of the Krathen appeared on his bridge. Both looked as puzzled as Velketh felt. Have either of you encountered these humans before? Velketh asked. Admiral Zekth's insectoid head tilted to one side. Never. The vessel appears to be constructed from basic metal alloys. Our bioscanners cannot penetrate its hull. Our energy probes are also being blocked, Admiral Kralnex added, his crystalline body pulsing with frustrated light. The technology is unlike anything in our databases. The human captain has requested a meeting with all 3 of us, Velketh said. I propose we hear what they have to say. If nothing else, it might provide some entertainment. The other 2 admirals agreed. After 37 years of war, even a brief distraction was welcome. They arranged to meet in neutral space, each bringing a single escort vessel. The mysterious human ship would join them there. As the 3 fleets began to move into position, Velketh found himself wondering what kind of beings these humans were. They flew a ship that looked like it was built in a backyard workshop, yet they showed no fear of entering a war zone. They spoke of ending conflicts that had claimed millions of lives as if it were a simple task. Perhaps most intriguingly, their vessel somehow blocked every scanning attempt. The Veltar telepathic abilities, Zephyrian biosensors, and Krathen energy probes all failed to penetrate its hull. What kind of technology could resist 3 completely different forms of analysis? The human ship continued its approach, its crude engines burning bright against the stars. Whatever answers it carried, Velketh would have them soon enough. After 3 years of stalemate, perhaps it was time for something new to enter their endless war. The dance of death was about to gain a new partner. The meeting point was a stretch of empty space between the 3 fleets. Ancient debris from countless battles drifted slowly through the void like metallic snow. Admiral Velketh watched through his view screen as the 4 ships approached each other. His own escort vessel, the Thoughtwalker, gleamed with polished metal and smooth curves. The Zephyrian bioship pulsed with organic life, its hull breathing like skin. The Krathen crystal ship caught starlight and threw it back in brilliant colors. And then there was the human vessel. The Indomitable looked like someone had taken spare parts from a junkyard and welded them together with more hope than skill. Its hull was a patchwork of metal plates riveted and bolted with no concern for appearance. Massive gun turrets stuck out at odd angles. Engine exhausts leaked trails of flame and smoke. Everything about it screamed primitive technology, yet it had crossed space to reach them. It had detected their conflict from light years away and decided to intervene. That suggested these humans were not as backward as their ship appeared. Establishing communication link, his officer reported. All 4 vessels are connected. The holographic chamber shimmered to life around Velkeith. Suddenly, he was standing in what appeared to be a conference room created from projected light. Admiral Zukoth materialized beside him, the Zephyrian's multiple eyes scanning the environment with insect-like twitches. Admiral Kralnex appeared on his other side, the Kraithan's crystalline body refracting the room's light into rainbow patterns. Then the human arrived. Captain Sarah Chen was smaller than Velkeith had expected. Humans appeared to be bipedal mammals, similar to his own species but more compact. She had dark hair pulled back in a simple style and wore a uniform of plain gray fabric. No decorations, no symbols of rank beyond simple insignia on her collar. Her brown eyes moved from one admiral to another with calm assessment. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting," she said. Her voice was steady and professional. "I know this situation is unusual." Admiral Zizkoth's mandibles clicked together in the Zephyrian equivalent of laughter. "Unusual is an understatement, human. We have never heard of your species. Your technology appears to be centuries behind our own, yet you fly into the middle of our war as if you own the galaxy." "We don't own anything," Chen replied. "But we've been watching your conflict for 18 months. Earth Command decided it was time to make contact." "Earth?" Admiral Kralnex's voice resonated like crystal chimes. "Our star charts show no inhabited worlds by that name in this sector. That's because Earth isn't in this sector. We're from outside your local group of stars. We've been exploring this region of space for the past 2 years." Velkeith felt a chill of unease. If these humans came from beyond the known star charts, they might represent a previously unknown civilization, one that had been observing them without being detected. "Your ship," he said carefully, "blocks our scanning attempts. Our telepathic abilities cannot penetrate your hull." "How is this possible with such primitive technology?" Chen smiled, and Velkeith found the expression unsettling. It showed no fear, only quiet confidence. "Human engineering takes a different approach than yours. We believe in building things that work, rather than things that look impressive. Your vessel appears to be constructed from basic metal alloys," Admiral Zekth observed. "Our bioships grow their hulls from living crystal bone. Your technology seems crude in comparison." "Maybe, but crude doesn't mean ineffective. Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution." Admiral Kralnex leaned forward, his crystalline form pulsing with curiosity. "You said you came to end our conflict. How does one small ship propose to stop a war between 3 galactic powers?" "By offering you a way out that preserves everyone's honor," Chen said. "You've been fighting for 37 years over control of the Nexus sector. None of you can win because every time one side gets ahead, the other 2 team up against them. It's a perfect stalemate." "The analysis is accurate," Velkeith admitted. "But what solution do you propose?" Chen activated a holographic projector of her own. A 3-dimensional map of the Nexus sector appeared in the center of the room. "The problem is that you're all equally matched. Your technologies are different, but equally powerful. Your fleets are roughly the same size. None of you has a decisive advantage." "This is not new information," Admiral Zukoth said impatiently. "No, but here's the new part. Instead of continuing this endless stalemate, I propose a tournament. Single elimination. Each fleet sends their best ship to fight one-on-one combat. Winner takes the Nexus sector. Losers withdraw completely and find somewhere else to fight over." The 3 admirals stared at her in silence. Finally, Admiral Kralnex spoke. "A tournament? You want us to settle a galactic war with gladiator contests? Why not? You're already fighting. This way you fight with purpose instead of just grinding each other down. 3 quick battles instead of 30 more years of stalemate." Velkeith felt his fellow admirals' thoughts through their subtle mental emanations. All 3 were intrigued despite themselves. The human proposal was simplistic, almost childish, but it was also practical. "What makes you think we would agree to such terms?" he asked. "Because you're tired," Chen said bluntly. "All of you. I can see it in your faces. This war stopped being about glory decades ago. Now it's just about who gets tired first. I'm offering you a way to end it with honor intact." Admiral Zezith's eyes glittered with interest. "And what role do humans play in this tournament?" "We participate. 4 ships total. 3 from your fleets, 1 from ours." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Admiral Kralnex spoke in a voice like breaking glass. "You cannot be serious. Your vessel is primitive compared to our technologies. You would be destroyed in minutes. Maybe, or maybe you're underestimating us. That's happened before." Velketh studied the human captain's face. There was no boasting in her expression, no false bravado, just quiet certainty. Either she was insane or she knew something they didn't. Your ship appears to mount kinetic weapons, he observed. Metal projectiles fired by chemical explosives. Such weapons are ineffective against energy shields. Are they? Has anyone actually tested that recently? Of course not. Such primitive weapons have been obsolete for centuries. Funny thing about obsolete weapons, sometimes they work precisely because they're obsolete. No one prepares defenses against them anymore. Admiral Zeketh leaned back, his insectoid features thoughtful. You are either very brave or very foolish, human. Probably both. But that's what makes us human. Velketh found himself considering the proposal seriously. 3 years of stalemate had accomplished nothing except filling space with corpses. His people were exhausted. Their resources were depleted. The telepathic link that connected his fleet carried undertones of despair and war weariness. If we agreed to this tournament, he said slowly, what would be the rules? Chen's smile returned. Simple, one-on-one combat. No outside interference. Fight until one ship is disabled or destroyed. Winner advances to the next round. And the human ship? Admiral Kralnex asked. What vessel would you send? The Indomitable. The ship I'm commanding right now. Admiral Zeketh's mandibles clicked in amusement. The same primitive vessel that brought you here? The one built from scrap metal and good intentions? That's the one. Velketh felt a sudden surge of respect for the human captain. Either she was supremely confident in her ship's abilities, or she was willing to sacrifice herself to end a war between strangers. Both possibilities intrigued him. I will need to consult with my fleet, he said. This decision cannot be made lightly. Of course. Take all the time you need. We'll wait. The other admirals nodded agreement. The holographic conference dissolved, leaving each commander alone with their thoughts. Velketh returned to his flagship and immediately called a meeting of his senior staff. The proposal was debated for hours. Some officers called it madness. Others saw it as an opportunity to end the stalemate without further massive casualties. Similar discussions were taking place aboard the Zephyrian and Krathan flagships. The human vessel waited patiently in neutral space, its primitive engines shut down, drifting like a piece of space junk. But Velketh knew it was anything but junk. Something about that battered hull and crude weapons made him nervous. 18 hours later, the three admirals reconvened in holographic conference. Each had reached the same conclusion. The Valtar Coalition accepts your proposal, Velketh announced, as does the Zephyrian Empire, Admiral Zeketh said. The Krathan hegemony agrees as well, Admiral Kralnex added. Captain Chen nodded as if she had expected no other answer. Excellent. When do we begin? Tomorrow, Velketh said. At midday Galactic Standard Time. Each fleet will send their finest vessel. One question, Admiral Kralnex interjected. What happens if your primitive ship is destroyed in the first round? Chen's smile never wavered. Then you'll have learned something about human engineering, and we'll have learned something about underestimating our opponents. The conference ended, leaving each admiral to prepare for the tournament that would determine the fate of the Nexus sector. As the three fleets began selecting their champion vessels, the human ship continued its patient drift through space. Velketh stared at it through his view screen, trying to understand what he was seeing. Tomorrow, that collection of metal plates and chemical engines would face the most advanced warships in. The three fleets moved with the careful precision of dancers who had performed the same routine for decades. Each admiral positioned their forces in the agreed formation, creating a vast triangle in space with the tournament arena at its center. Millions of crew members watched through view screens and sensor feeds as their champions prepared for battle. Admiral Velketh stood on the bridge of the Mind's Reach, reviewing the selection of his fleet's champion. After hours of debate, the choice had been obvious. The Thought-Piercer was the newest vessel in the Coalition fleet, equipped with the most advanced reality manipulation weapons his people had ever created. Its hull was forged from psychoactive metals that responded to telepathic commands. Its weapons could twist spacetime itself, turning enemy ships inside out or making them forget they existed. Captain Jelnara, the Thought-Piercer's commander, was considered the finest officer in the Coalition fleet. Her telepathic abilities were so powerful, she could coordinate an entire battle fleet with her mind alone. More importantly, She could focus her psychic energy through the ship's weapons, creating effects that defied the laws of physics. "The Thought Piercer is ready for combat," his communications officer reported. "Captain Jelnara reports all systems optimal." Velketh nodded, then turned his attention to the other champions. The Zephyrian Empire had selected the Hive's Wrath, their newest and largest bioship. The creature was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long, with a hull that rippled with living muscle. Weapon ports opened and closed like breathing mouths. Its most terrifying feature was its ability to spawn dozens of smaller attack craft during battle. Each spawned fighter was a living creature with its own intelligence and hunger for combat. Admiral Zikth commanded the bioship personally. His consciousness merged with the creature's primitive brain. The combination of Zephyrian intellect and biological instinct made for a formidable opponent. The Hive's Wrath had never lost a battle. The Krathan hegemony had chosen Crystal's Edge, a vessel that barely looked like a ship at all. It was more like a giant crystal formation that happened to fly through space. Its hull was composed of pure crystallized energy, harder than any metal and capable of channeling the power of nearby stars. Its weapons could fire concentrated beams of stellar energy that could melt through any known armor. Admiral Kralnex piloted the vessel himself, his crystalline body interfacing directly with the ship's energy matrix. He could draw power from any star within a light year's distance, making him effectively unlimited in his destructive potential. And then there was the human ship. The Indomitable hung in space like a metal tumor, ugly and crude compared to the elegant champions surrounding it. Its hull was still that same patchwork of riveted plates. Its weapons were still primitive kinetic cannons. Its engine still burned chemical fuel with all the efficiency of a campfire. Captain Chen had transferred her command to the tournament vessel, bringing a crew of just 50 humans. By comparison, the other ships carried crews in the thousands. The bioship was itself a living creature with its own consciousness. The crystal ship was piloted by beings of pure energy. The coalition ship was crewed by telepaths who shared a group mind. How do 50 humans expect to compete with that? Commander Nethval wondered aloud. Velketh had been asking himself the same question. Every tactical analysis suggested the human ship would be destroyed within minutes of the first battle. Its armor was too thin, its weapons too weak, its crew too small. Yet Captain Chen had shown no doubt about her chances. Perhaps they have hidden weapons, Velketh suggested, or their technology is more advanced than it appears. Our sensors detect nothing unusual. Chemical rockets, kinetic weapons, basic electronics. It's like something from a museum. The tournament rules were simple. 4 ships would fight in single elimination rounds. The winners would advance until only one remained. That ship's fleet would claim the Nexus sector. The other fleets would withdraw and seek glory elsewhere. Random selection determined the first matchups. The Hive's Wrath would face Crystal's Edge in the opening battle. The Thought Piercer would fight the Indomitable in the second match. The winners would meet in the final round. Velketh felt a mixture of relief and disappointment. Relief because his ship would not face either of the truly dangerous opponents in the first round. Disappointment because the human vessel would likely be destroyed before he could see what it was really capable of. "Attention all vessels," came the tournament coordinator's announcement. "First battle will commence in 30 minutes. Hive's Wrath and Crystal's Edge, move to starting positions." The 2 champions separated from the fleet formations and approached opposite ends of the designated combat zone. The space between them stretched for 1,000 kilometers, giving plenty of room for maneuvering. Automated sensor platforms took position around the arena to record every moment of the battle. Admiral Ziziketh's bioship pulsed with eager hunger. The living vessel could sense the approaching battle and was already releasing combat pheromones. Weapon ports dilated like excited eyes. The creature's spawn chambers swelled with developing fighters. Admiral Kralnex's crystal ship began gathering energy from the nearby star. Its hull brightened as stellar power flowed through crystalline conduits. Energy weapons extended from the ship's core like glowing spears. The very fabric of space seemed to bend around the accumulated power. 10 seconds to battle commencement, the coordinator announced. Velketh leaned forward in his command chair. After 37 years of 3-way stalemate, they were finally going to see which technology was truly superior. Bioengineering versus energy manipulation. Living weapons versus crystallized power. Battle begins, now. The 2 ships launched themselves at each other with deadly grace. Crystal's edge fired first, sending a beam of concentrated starlight across the void. The energy beam struck the bioship's flank, but instead of penetrating, it was absorbed by the living hull. The creature's skin glowed briefly as it metabolized the energy attack. Hive's wrath responded by spawning a dozen fighters from its belly. Each creature was the size of a fighter craft but moved with organic fluidity. They swarmed toward the crystal ship like angry wasps, firing bioplasma from their weapon organs. Crystal's edge rotated its hull, bringing new weapon arrays to bear. Multiple energy beams lanced out, destroying 3 of the biofighters instantly, but the surviving creatures split up, forcing the crystal ship to divide its fire. The main bioship used the distraction to close the distance. As it approached, weapon ports along its hull began firing corrosive bioacid. The acid struck Crystal's edge and began eating through the crystalline armor. Warning lights flashed as hull integrity dropped. Admiral Kralnex channeled more power from the nearby star. His ship's hull blazed with increased energy as he prepared a maximum power attack. The bioship sensed the threat and tried to withdraw, but it was too close. Crystal's edge released its stored power in a devastating energy pulse. The blast lit up space like a miniature supernova. When the glare faded, both ships hung motionless in the void. The bioship's hull was charred and blackened. Deep wounds leaked fluids into space. Its spawn fighters drifted lifeless, killed by the energy pulse. But the creature still lived, its wounds already beginning to heal. Crystal's edge was in worse condition. The acid had eaten deep into its hull, creating structural weaknesses. When the bioship's final attack had forced it to overload its energy matrix, internal explosions had shattered key crystalline nodes. Power flickered and died as the ship's energy grid collapsed. For several minutes, both vessels drifted without movement. Their crews worked frantically to restore critical systems. Then the bioship's engines flickered back to life. The creature had survived. Crystal's edge tried to restart its energy matrix, but the damage was too severe. Internal explosions rippled through its hull as the crystalline structure collapsed. Admiral Kralnex barely had time to evacuate before his ship tore itself apart in a cascade of energy. Feedback. Winner Hive's wrath, the tournament coordinator announced. The Zephyrian fleet erupted in celebration while the Krathan forces watched in stunned silence. After millennia of believing their energy technology was superior, they had been defeated by biological evolution. Admiral Velketh studied the surviving bioship with new respect. It was badly damaged but still functional. More importantly, it was already healing. By the time of the final battle, it might be at full strength again. Impressive, Commander Nethval observed. The biological approach proved more resilient than expected. Indeed. But our fight is against the humans. Their ship shows no such healing abilities. True, the contest should be brief. The arena was cleared of debris as the second battle prepared to begin. The Thought Piercer moved into position, its psychoactive hull shimmering with telepathic energy. Captain Jelnara opened her mind to the ship's weapons, feeling the reality warping systems respond to her thoughts. Across the arena, the Indomitable took its position with less ceremony. The ugly human ship looked even more primitive next to the Coalition's elegant champion. Its hull showed no exotic energies, no special effects, no signs of advanced technology. I almo the galaxy. Logic said it was. Captain Jelnara felt the familiar rush of power as her mind merged with the Thought Piercer's weapon systems. The ship's psychoactive hull responded to her telepathic commands like an extension of her own body. Reality itself bent around the vessel as space-time warping generators came online. Her first attack was simple but devastating. She focused her mental energy through the ship's primary weapon array and fired a reality distortion pulse directly at the human vessel. The attack was designed to convince matter at the quantum level that it no longer existed. Anything hit by the pulse would simply cease to be. The pulse struck the Indomitable dead center. Nothing happened. Jelnara blinked in confusion. Her sensors showed the pulse had hit its target perfectly. The energy had been absorbed, dispersed, or somehow neutralized. But that should have been impossible. No known technology could defend against reality manipulation at the quantum level. She tried again, this time with a different approach. Instead of trying to unmake the human ship, she attempted to twist space around it, creating a gravity well that would crush the vessel like an empty can. The attack launched successfully, space warping and bending around the target. The Indomitable sat motionless in the center of the distortion, completely unaffected. "What kind of shielding are they using?" Jelnara muttered to her crew. Her science officer, Lieutenant Velkaz, studied his instruments with growing bewilderment. "No shielding detected, Captain. No energy barriers, no exotic matter fields, no quantum dampeners. The ship appears to be completely unprotected. Then why aren't our weapons affecting it?" "Unknown. The attacks are reaching the target. They're just not working." Jelnara felt the first stirring of unease. She had trained for years to master the Coalition's reality warping technology. Her weapons should be able to affect anything in normal space-time. The fact that they were failing suggested something very unusual about the human vessel. Meanwhile, aboard the Indomitable, Captain Chen watched the Coalition attacks with professional interest. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Martinez, monitored the incoming energy readings. "Second reality distortion incoming, Captain. Same as the first one. Hull integrity, 100%. These reality weapons aren't even scratching the paint." Chen nodded. She had expected this. Human engineers had spent years studying the theoretical principles behind exotic weapons. They had concluded that the most effective defense against such attacks was not to try to block them, but to make them irrelevant. "Return fire," she ordered. Kinetic rounds, full spread. The Indomitable's main guns rotated with mechanical precision. 8 massive cannons locked onto the Coalition vessel and fired simultaneously. Metal slugs the size of telephone poles launched from the barrels, accelerated by chemical explosives and magnetic coils to significant fractions of light speed. The rounds crossed the distance between ships in seconds. Jelnara saw them coming and tried to use her reality warping defenses. She focused her mind on the incoming projectiles, attempting to convince them they didn't exist. The rounds ignored her efforts completely. They struck the Thought Piercer's hull with devastating impact. The ship's exotic armor, designed to deflect energy weapons and reality distortions, proved useless against simple kinetic force. Metal plates buckled and tore as the slugs punched through multiple decks. Alarms screamed across the Coalition ship's bridge. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7, the damage control officer reported. "Primary shield generators offline. Quantum field manipulators damaged." Jelnara stared at her tactical display in shock. The human weapons had crippled her ship with a single volley. How was that possible? Kinetic weapons were obsolete. No one had used simple metal projectiles in warfare for centuries. "All weapons target the human vessel," she ordered. "Reality storm, maximum intensity." The Thought Piercer unleashed its full arsenal. Space around the Indomitable twisted into impossible shapes as multiple reality distortions struck simultaneously. Gravity fluctuated wildly. Time flowed backward in some areas and forward in others. The very laws of physics seemed to break down. The human ship sat in the middle of the chaos. "Completely unaffected, Captain," Lieutenant Velkaz called out, his voice tight with confusion. "Our reality weapons are registering direct hits but causing no damage. It's as if the human vessel exists in a different dimensional framework." Jelnara felt her confidence cracking. Her people's greatest weapons were useless against this primitive-looking ship. Meanwhile, the humans' crude kinetic cannons were tearing her vessel apart. The Indomitable fired again. This time the rounds targeted the Thought Piercer's engine section. High-velocity slugs punched through the ship's exotic propulsion systems, causing massive explosions. The Coalition vessel lurched as its gravity manipulators failed. "Engine power down to 30%, the engineering officer reported. "Telepathic communication array offline. We're losing life support on the lower decks." Jelnara made a desperate decision. She channeled all remaining power into the ship's most powerful weapon, a reality inversion beam that could turn matter into antimatter. The attack required enormous energy and would leave her ship defenseless, but it was her only hope of penetrating the human vessel's impossible defenses. The beam lanced across space, striking the Indomitable with enough force to annihilate a small moon. For a moment, the human ship was surrounded by a brilliant explosion of exotic energy. When the light faded, the Indomitable remained completely intact. "Impossible," Jelnara whispered. The human ship's cannons rotated toward her vessel for the 3rd time, but instead of firing, Captain Chen's voice crackled over the communication system. "Coalition vessel, this is Captain Chen. Your ship is severely damaged and your weapons are ineffective. I'm offering you the chance to surrender with honor." Jelnara looked around her ruined bridge. Half her crew was dead or wounded. Her ship was barely holding together. Her most powerful weapons had proven completely useless. She had no choice. "This is Captain Jelnara of the Thought Piercer. I surrender." The tournament coordinator's voice echoed across the arena. "Winner, Indomitable." Silence filled the communication channels as 3 galactic civilizations tried to process what they had just witnessed. The most primitive vessel in the tournament had easily defeated one of the most advanced ships in known space. Admiral Vel Keth sat in stunned silence on his flagship's bridge. Everything he thought he knew about warfare had just been turned upside down. The Coalition's reality warping technology, perfected over millennia, had been useless against human engineering. "How?" Commander Nethval asked, voicing the question everyone was thinking. "I don't know," Velketh admitted. "Their ship shouldn't be able to resist our weapons. Nothing should be able to simply ignore reality manipulation." Across the battlefield, Admiral Zeketh was having similar thoughts aboard his bioship. The Hive's Wrath had been damaged in its fight with the crystal vessel, but it was healing rapidly. However, watching the human ship shrug off the Coalition's best attacks made him reconsider his chances in the final battle. His bioship was powerful, but it was still subject to the normal laws of physics. If human weapons could punch through exotic armor designed to deflect reality distortions, they would have no trouble penetrating biological defenses. The arena was cleared once again as medical ships evacuated the wounded from the Thought Piercer. The Coalition vessel was towed away for emergency repairs, though it would never fight again. The damage was too extensive. "Final battle will commence in 2 hours," the tournament coordinator announced. Hive's Wrath versus Indomitable. Those 2 hours felt like an eternity. Scientists from all 3 fleets worked frantically to understand how the human ship had resisted the Coalition's reality weapons. Their analysis revealed nothing useful. The Indomitable appeared to be exactly what it looked like, a crude metal box propelled by chemical rockets. Yet somehow, it had proven immune to attacks that could unmake matter at the quantum level. Captain Chen spent the time making minor repairs to her ship and checking her crew's readiness. The battle with the Coalition vessel had been easier than expected, but she knew the bioship would present different challenges. Living weapons were unpredictable in ways that technology was not. Admiral Zekth used the time to commune with his vessel's consciousness. The Hive's Wrath was eager for battle, its primitive hunger overriding any caution about the unknown human capabilities. But Zeketh himself was more thoughtful. He had watched 3 different types of exotic weapons fail against the human ship. Perhaps it was time to try a different approach. As the 2 hours drew to a close, the final contestants moved into position. The bioship had healed most of its damage from the earlier battle. Its hull pulsed with healthy circulation, and new fighters were already developing in its spawn chambers. It was ready to unleash the full fury of biological evolution. The human ship remained unchanged. Same ugly hull, same primitive weapons, same small crew. But now it carried the weight of having done the impossible. 2 galactic civilizations had already learned to fear that battered collection of metal plates. "Contestants in position," the coordinator announced. "Final battle will determine control of the Nexus sector." Admiral Zekth opened a communication channel to the human vessel. "Captain Chen, your ship has impressed us all. But biological weapons follow different rules than technology. Prepare the bioship attacked with the fury of a living nightmare. Dozens of fighters erupted from the Hive's Wrath like angry hornets, each creature seeking to swarm and destroy the human vessel. Meanwhile, the main ship's weapon ports opened wide, revealing rows of biological cannons that fired streams of corrosive acid and bioplasma. Captain Chen watched the approaching swarm with calm assessment. "Point defense systems online. Target the small craft first." The Indomitable's hull bristled with smaller weapons, rapid-fire cannons designed to intercept incoming missiles and fighters. They opened fire in unison, filling space with streams of metal projectiles. The biofighters tried to dodge with organic grace, but physics was physics. High-velocity rounds tore through living tissue as easily as they penetrated metal armor. Admiral Zekth felt each fighter's death through his neural link with the bioship. The creatures were extensions of the vessel's consciousness, and losing them was like losing pieces of himself. But he pressed the attack, sending wave after wave of fighters while the main ship closed the distance. Bioplasma barrage incoming, Lieutenant Martinez reported from the Indomitable's tactical station. Streams of living acid struck the human ship's hull, Chen expected to see the corrosive material eat through her vessel's armor, like it had damaged the crystal ship. Instead, the acid simply splashed off the metal plates and dispersed harmlessly into space. Hull integrity holding at 100%, the damage control officer reported. The bioplasma isn't penetrating our armor, Chen nodded. Human engineers had studied biological weapons extensively during their exploration of the galaxy. They had designed their ship's armor to resist corrosive attacks by layering different types of metal and ceramic compounds. What looked like simple steel plates was actually a complex composite designed to neutralize chemical and biological threats. The Hive's wrath tried a different approach. Massive tentacles erupted from its hull, reaching out to grapple the human vessel. If acid couldn't penetrate the armor, perhaps the bioship could simply crush its opponent with brute force. The tentacles wrapped around the Indomitable's hull with enough pressure to crumple a normal starship. But the human vessel's framework had been built to withstand forces that would destroy most spacecraft. The tentacles squeezed and pulled, achieving nothing except to hold themselves in perfect position for the Indomitable's close-range weapons. "Fire all guns," Chen ordered. Every weapon on the human ship fired simultaneously. Kinetic rounds, high-explosive shells, and armor-piercing slugs poured into the bioship at point-blank range. The living hull convulsed as massive wounds opened along its length. Vital organs ruptured, circulation systems severed. The creature's death screams echoed through space as electromagnetic pulses. Admiral Zikth felt the bioship's agony through their neural link. The pain was overwhelming, but he forced himself to maintain the connection. He had to understand what was happening to his vessel. The human weapons were unlike anything he had encountered. They didn't try to overwhelm biological defenses with exotic energy or reality distortions. They simply applied basic physics with devastating efficiency. High-velocity projectiles punched through living tissue and exploded inside vital organs. The bioship's healing abilities, so effective against energy weapons, were useless against physical trauma on this scale. "Release the human vessel," Zikth commanded through the neural link. "Withdraw to fighting distance." The Hive's wrath tried to obey, but its tentacles were already dying. The massive appendages went limp and drifted away from the human ship, leaving trails of biological fluid in space. The bioship itself was mortally wounded, its consciousness fading as critical systems failed. But Admiral Zikth was not finished. He activated the bioship's final weapon, a viral payload that could infect enemy vessels through their ventilation systems. The virus was designed to consume metal and electronics, turning enemy ships into breeding grounds for the Zephyrian Empire's biological weapons. Millions of microscopic organisms erupted from the dying bioship's pores, forming a cloud of infectious material around the human vessel. They sought entry points in the Indomitable's hull, looking for any crack or seam that would allow them inside. They found nothing. The human ship was sealed tighter than a submarine, with multiple layers of hull plating and atmospheric barriers. The virus cloud swirled around the vessel harmlessly before dispersing into space. Biological contamination attempt detected and neutralized, the Indomitable's science officer reported. Hull integrity remains at 100%. Chen felt a mixture of respect and pity for the Zephyrian admiral. His bioship had fought with courage and creativity, using every weapon in its biological arsenal. But human engineering had been designed specifically to counter such threats. Sometimes the best defense against exotic weapons was simple, robust construction. The Hive's wrath made one final attempt at victory. Using the last of its energy, the bioship tried to ram the human vessel. If it could not defeat the Indomitable with weapons, perhaps it could destroy both ships in a collision. Chen saw the attack coming and could have easily maneuvered out of the way. Instead, she did something that shocked every observer in the three fleets. She ordered her ship to meet the collision head-on. "Full reverse thrust," she commanded. "Brace for impact." The two ships struck each other with tremendous force. The bioship's weakened hull crumpled on impact, its internal structure collapsing as the creature finally died. But the Indomitable, built like a fortress of metal and determination, absorbed the collision with minimal damage. A few dents in the hull plating, some rattled equipment, but nothing that affected the ship's operational capacity. Admiral Zikth barely escaped in a life pod before his vessel's final collapse. The Hive's wrath, greatest achievement of Zephyrian bioengineering, dissolved into component organic matter and drifted away like space dust. Winner. Indomitable. the tournament coordinator announced into the stunned silence. Captain Chen opened a fleet-wide communication channel. Her voice carried clearly to every ship in the 3 assembled fleets. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Indomitable. The tournament is concluded. Under the agreed terms, the Nexus sector now falls under Earth's protection." Admiral Velketh found his voice first. "Captain Chen, your victory was unexpected, but I must ask, how? Our most advanced weapons had no effect on your vessel. Your technology appears primitive, yet it proves superior to our own." Chen's response carried a note of gentle amusement. "Admiral, you've been thinking about this problem the wrong way. You've spent centuries developing more and more exotic weapons. Reality distortions, bioengineering, energy manipulation. Very impressive technologies. But you forgot about the basics. The basics? Simple engineering principles. Build it strong. Build it redundant. Build it to last. Your ships are marvels of advanced technology, but they're optimized for specific types of combat. When you encounter something outside your parameters, you have problems. But our weapons should work on any material target." Admiral Kralnex interjected from his rescue ship. "Should? Yes. In theory. But theory and practice are different things. Human engineers don't just solve problems, we oversolve them. That hull you've been shooting at? It's not just metal plating. It's 17 different layers of materials, each designed to counter a specific type of threat. Reality distortions, energy weapons, biological attacks, kinetic impact, we planned for all of it. Commander Nethval spoke up from the Coalition flagship, but that would require massive amounts of material and energy. The ship would be too heavy to maneuver effectively, would it? You're thinking like people who've relied on exotic technologies for so long. You've forgotten what good old-fashioned engineering can accomplish. We don't need to manipulate gravity or bend space-time. We just build our engines big enough to move whatever we need to move." Admiral Zicht's voice came from his life pod, weak but determined. "Your weapons. They ignored all our defenses. Because they weren't designed to be fancy. Metal slugs accelerated to high velocity. Simple physics. Your exotic armor was designed to deflect energy beams and reality distortions, but it's still just matter. And matter responds to kinetic force the same way it always has." The communication channel fell silent as the implications sank in. 3 galactic civilizations had spent millennia developing increasingly complex technologies. They had created weapons that could manipulate reality itself, but they had forgotten the fundamental truth that sometimes the simplest solution was the most effective. Chen continued. "You want to know the real secret of human engineering? We're too stubborn to quit and too paranoid to build anything without backup systems. This ship has 3 independent power sources, 5 separate life support systems, and enough armor to stop anything short of a direct hit from a supernova. We didn't win because we're smarter than you. We won because we're too pig-headed to build anything that doesn't work." "And now?" Admiral Velketh asked. "What are Earth's intentions regarding the Nexus sector?" "We're going to do what we said we'd do. Keep the peace. The sector is under our pre to face the Fury.